movie Reagan came out this year in 2024. This obviously follows Ronald Reagan and the story of his life. From when he was a child all the way up to when he was the president and when he started to develop dementia, and that's basically where it ends. But yeah, this is a story of his life. Now, here's the thing. This movie is incredibly mixed for me. Now, I am incredibly into this era of history, so learning more about Reagan's life, Ronald Reagan's life, I think was very interesting. You start off when he's a child. You move up through his life, his time as a lifeguard, his time as an actor, his time as a failing actor, his time as a politician, and that's mainly where it focuses. But just all of that through is really good. And now the first thing I should talk about is the guy playing Ronald Reagan. He does a very good job. No matter what era of life he is playing the character in, he does play it pretty well, whether it's actor Reagan or whether it's president, politician Reagan. He does a very good job playing the role, even though he doesn't always look the age that Ronald Reagan was during these events. I still do think he gives off a pretty good performance for the most part. But something else about the movie is when certain things happen. Okay, so no, they shy away from this. When they kind of realize, yeah, this isn't working. The movie was self-conscious in these sequences because. So anytime they try to build up an emotion, okay. They try to build up emotion, whether it's they try to build up suspense in this sequence, or they're trying to build up any really strong emotion for the plot. It just doesn't go well, and then they back away from they're kind of yeah, this isn't working. So whenever they try to add these other emotional elements suspense or whatever, it does not work well in a way. It just feels awkward. And so, robotic and artificial, that is just, it's terrible. I mean, okay, so there's this one sequence where they're trying to build it up as this big, suspenseful sequence. But it just feels so, artificial. They want you to feel something, but they don't know how to actually make you feel that emotion. So when they're trying to convey it, it just completely fails. It feels so artificial and fake, they didn't even know what they were doing. But you know what does work? When they actually start telling his life. When they are actually just focusing straight up on Ronald Reagan and just about the different parts of his life, this play-by-play of his life, that is when it works the best. When they try to shy away from that and introduce other elements and other plots, the movie just falls in on itself. But when they focus on Ronald Reagan as a person and his story and everything, that is where the movie thrives, and that is where it does very well. Still, though, it does try to introduce other elements. Okay, so at the very beginning, alright, they need somebody to narrate the movie. Now, who would you think would narrate a movie about Ronald Reagan? I don't know, maybe one of his kids, okay? No, maybe his wife. His wife lived longer than him. No, that still isn't a perfect fit. Maybe someone who worked with, that was really close to him in the White House, is a character in this movie telling the story. Oh, that would be terrible. Now we have to get this completely fictional character to just tell the story, who is clearly an American actor, trying to do a half-baked European accent, but it just completely fails. I mean, they could have had anybody narrate this movie. They could have had any character narrate this movie. Maybe they had somebody that was really close to him in the White House, like one of his advisors or something. Could never. You know what they did? They decided to have this completely fictional character that is clearly just an American actor who is doing a half-baked European accent that completely fails. Now, I wouldn't be as mad if they just completely committed to it and they actually had a European actor playing the parts of the accent and everything was genuine. But no, this guy is narrating the movie for the entire time, and every time he tries to put up this clearly fake European accent, it just completely fails, and it gets annoying after a while. I mean, it's annoying at first, but then you slowly get used to it. And I was like, okay, that's just the voice we're gonna have to listen to. Luckily, he does not talk very much after a certain point in the film. But just the fact that they tried to set up an entire subplot just for the narrator, which goes nowhere, does nothing, and we're just supposed to forget about, which is what they want you to do. They just want you to forget about this narrator subplot, like, because they do nothing with it. They do absolutely nothing with it. This guy comes in, he tells them this story, and then he leaves. Yeah, that is like the worst setup ever. And we barely even know why that guy went to his house anyway, so, like, what's the point? I mean, okay. Now that might have sounded really bad. But luckily, that is not most of the film. Most of the film is about him. But, oh my god, there's, like, this funniest line in this movie where it's like, alright, so there's a scene where, alright, so Senior Gorbachev and Reagan are meeting in Moscow to discuss the Cold War and everything. And there was this absolute zinger of a line of dialogue in the film, and here's what it said. Okay. So it basically went along these lines. The only problem was that Reagan looked the best there. Like there's this goofy line basically saying, but the only problem for Gorbachev was that Reagan looked better than him. That was legitimately one of the lines. I mean, there were just some so goofy lines. I mean, like, I get, you might like Ronald Reagan a lot, but, like, you're seriously going to include a goofy line like that? Like, there's certain points in this movie that just feel so pretentious, or just, like, kind of, like, silly, or, like, stupid, stuff like that. But when they are just trying to tell the story of Ronald Reagan, that is when the movie is at its best. Because the performance as Ronald Reagan that is given off in this movie is great. Especially the opening speech at the beginning of the film. That is brilliant. And the speech is given justice in this movie because it's amazing. It's great. And so I actually enjoyed this movie a lot. I mean, I don't care how you feel about Ronald Reagan in real life. Honestly, I couldn't care less. But this movie overall, I mean, it was okay. It was very mid. Probably like a B minus at best. This movie's probably like a 60%, and yeah. So also, I just want to flash this red boxed review on screen for a second. Yeah. So I'll just leave you guys with that. So yeah.